Hey everybody, welcome to the Logan Power Show. It's me, your host, Calvin Logan, live here at the Scotts Grand at 5060 Dorchester Road here in Charleston, South Carolina. Well, hey, I got two dynamic guys who are making things happen throughout the United States and right now through the Low Country. To my far right, I got Pastor Philip Pinckney. How you doing, sir?
Hey, good to be here, brother.
Good, gotta have you here. And in the middle, the guy here, he's a singer, writer, and has his own radio morning show, Mr. James Patterson. How you doing, sir?
Hey, how are you, man?
Great to have you here on the show.
Good to be here.
Hey, we're gonna first start to our far right, Pastor Philip Pinckney, sir. I thank you for coming on. I know people know more about yourself. Tell us more about how you got started into the ministry.
Well, I grew up around the church, but not in the church. I was a pretty bad kid growing up. Thankfully, I had lots of good influences, and my parents were a tremendous influence in my life. So I got saved around 11 years ago, and ever since then, just been running. I'm running for Christ, and throughout college, did college ministry, and went to Philadelphia for a few years, came back, and now that I came back, it's just been almost full-time ministry.
Gotcha, definitely. And I know that, I know you went to the Citadel.
I did.
And definitely that's a great school. My little brother went there and he graduated about almost 2 years ago.
Awesome,
now.
Congratulations.
Definitely. And you being a young pastor, doing some great things. What are some things that you're running into as being some kind of difficulty right now when you're trying to teach to the community right now?
It's a huge question. So there's the contemporary issues and then the eternal issues. I guess I would segment it that way. The contemporary issues are what we're facing now, what's happening in the news cycle, right? As we're having conversations with people now, a lot of them are worried and fearful and heartbroken about the recent tragedies in the Emmanuel 9, about Walter Scott not too long ago, and that's just in Charleston. If you zoom out on the national scale, the tragedies are almost overwhelming. So that becomes something that you have to speak to and speak about. But then there's the eternal issues, right? People want what they want, and that's oftentimes in opposition to what God wants for them. So that's just human nature itself rubbing up against the gospel. So as a pastor in today's age, not only have to deal with the eternal issues, which everyone has to deal with, but you also have to deal with the contemporary issues. How do you make the 2,000-year-old text, relevant in today's society, but not changing it, but really explaining it in a way that's relevant to people today and to deal with the issues and the problems that they're facing. So that's probably some of the biggest issues.
Definitely. I know there's some issues that being transparent. Definitely, I'm a believer. I believe Jesus Christ died on the cross for my sins. I've taught the word myself, being a teacher. Now, right now, I'm not at a church that I'm teaching the word now, but I believe I'm teaching from here by showing the example. And I'm always for what pastors are doing. Yeah. Because I'm like this. I don't talk about nobody. I want to figure out what we need to do to get to the next level. No more problems. Let's talk about some really solutions.
Absolutely.
And I know the Bible is relevant in today's society in 2015. And we went to a visual for the Emmanuel 9, recognizing them. And you spoke about Pastor Pinckney, who passed away. And you mentioned that there was another pastor that he was next to on the other side, and they never really talked to each other for that entire time. What are some things that we need to do to bring the church together? And what I mean not saying, okay, this church is better than that church, but saying like the pastors coming together and saying, okay, what you got going on this month? I'm pushing all my members this way. What do you got going on this month? What are some things that you think we need to work on and get together?
So real briefly, one of the, I guess the most relevant issue is after the Emmanuel 9 shooting, that kind of ripped the Band-Aid off of a wound that's festered in Charleston for a long time. And that's just racial tension and division, even in the church. So there's been nationwide claims and calls for unity and division, but I believe that both judgment and reconciliation have to start in the house of God. So I think the church should lead the way in racial reconciliation and unity. And one of the ways that we can do that practically is just by living in community and physical presence with one another, getting to know people who believe differently than you, who look differently than you, Because sometimes it's not just a racial issue. Sometimes it's a belief issue, right? There's black pastors who don't talk to other black pastors because they worship differently, they believe differently, they're on different sets of town. And so we have interdenominational issues that we need to work on, as well as across the aisles, reaching out to people who believe and look differently. And there's some difficulty there, right? Because there's a lot of, we feel like there's not a lot of common ground there. But one thing we know about the power of the gospel is we know that everyone's a sinner. We know that God is Lord over all. We know that he redeems and calls everyone. So we have more in common than we think. It's about doing the hard work of intentional relationship building, to have those conversations and to bring those things out in the open. Before we have any hope of reconciliation, we got to have a relationship. And that has to start in the house of God.
Definitely. And definitely I want to get back to you and back some more things. But let's talk about this man in the middle, Mr. James Patterson. Humble guy who's doing some great things. The James Patterson Morning Show, doing some great things there. And let's talk about you, sir. I know you're a singer, you're a writer, and now you got your own talk show. So tell us about how you got started into this industry.
Well, I am a music teacher as well, and I always spoke to my students and let them know that they should live out their dreams. One of my prior students was actually Joshua Rogers, BET Sunday Best Season 5 winner, and I kind of motivated them to go out and live their dreams. And then one day I said, James, you're motivating them, but you didn't motivate yourself. How can you encourage others to do something that you're not doing? So I kind of took a step out on faith and entered into the Black Expo competition, and that's actually where Josh started as well. And then I won. So after that, doors just began to open. It was like I was at home. Like all the time, God had this waiting,
Yes, sir. Let's talk about this CD you got. Better is on the way.
Oh, that's exciting.
Now, it sounded to me you trying to testify to your testimony of what you're going through, and you're prophesying to the people. And your morning show is great, 106.3, and you're prophesying there. You got a strong team in front of you, big social media buff. I see a lot of photos, pictures, very vibrant. The Patterson empire. So Better's on the way. Tell us how it led to this song right here.
Growing up, I had a really rough childhood, really rough life. We grew up struggling, and even then, when I got as an adult, I found not ways to actually fix it. I kind of just morphed it and pushed it to the side, but it was still there. There was still issues I was still handling on my own. And I didn't grow up in a Christian home per se. They believed, but we were unable to go to church like regularly. So what ended up happening is I kind of put it all on myself. I gained a lot of weight. I ended up being like 400 and something pounds, and then I ended up almost losing my life. So when I came out of that and ended up losing all the weight, and I found that God kept me, that was a point where I realized that better had to be on the way. We got to continue to speak it. And I believed it for myself, like better is just not here, but better is going to continually be there. It's going to continue to get better every day.
Wow. See, because I remember you put a post out there showing your before and your after. 400 pounds. And now you don't look it, and you say God kept you. What are some things that helped you get the weight off?
Well, I'll have to. This is funny, but I walked into the doctor, and I started losing my memory and all kind of stuff. I ended up being a diabetic, and not knowing. And when I got finished, they told me that my blood sugar was 800, and I ended up being on insulin 4 times a day. And so what my doctor, I checked him out. I went to my regular physician, and he said to me, James, you either change your life or just tell me when to get my black suit together, and because you won't live past 29. I'm 30 today. But I will say this, and actually you would say that was, I thought it was scary, but now I look at it as a funny thing because it really scared me into getting myself together. I realized at that point, if you want to live, because there's so much more for you to live for, There's so much more that I have to do. In order to do that, I have to change my mindset. So it was really a mindset thing for me. I changed the whole way I thought about food, the whole way I thought about eating. I ate to just eat.
Gotcha.
I ate because I was bored. Well, it's nothing else to do, let's eat. And then I didn't pick healthy choices.
Gotcha.
You know, so I just changed my whole concept of thinking.
Well, see, that's the thing. You change your mindset, and I think that's what's in your singing. You can see the difference. 'Cause I remember I saw you at the Black Expo, and you seemed like you had a passion for life, and in the way that others did not. You know, because I remember I said, like, man, I said, this guy right here, you know, I want to get on my show, and James was always busy. I said, man, what you got going on? Next thing you know, you got a morning show. I said, man, Lord, you better talk to James to get on the Logan Power Show. Let's talk about this story. But Better's on the way. And the album, everything, getting that together. When is that dropping?
That's dropping this year, guys. We're going to start with an EP, actually. It's going to be about 5 or 6 songs. And I did it a little slowly because I want it to be right. There's so much. I've done a lot. I've gone to the Stellar Awards. I've performed on stage with Donnie and all these other folks. I want my stuff to be right. I want it to bless the people. I just don't want to put it out just because I want to become this big star. I want my ministry to be something that people can always relate to and take with them when they're needing to know who is going to make things better.
Definitely. And like I said, the information's on the screen, how to get in contact with these gentlemen here. I'm telling you, I'm so humble. You don't know how it's a blessing to be around some dynamic men of God that are making some great pathways. Now, for you, let's go back to you, Pastor Pinckney. Being a young pastor, you started this program called One Charleston. Explain to us more about this program that we got going on.
So One Charleston was actually birthed out of the heart of some other pastors, actually, that was started about 1.5 years ago. Pastor Mike Seaver of Sovereign Grace at Low Country, Marcus Bryant, A.J. Rankin, Craig Tuck. And I have to mention their names because they preceded even me in this effort, because they had a passion for racial unity in the church, and this preceded Ferguson, Baltimore, this preceded Walter Scott and all the other, most recent tragic events. So God put that on their heart before then, but then recently, in light of, the tragedies and the crimes, especially racially motivated violence, One Charleston has kind of taken a dominant stage in Charleston. And really briefly, it's just a platform. It's not an organization in the traditional sense. It's just a collection of pastors, and all we want to do is we want to guide churches to help begin having the conversations to embrace the multi-ethnic gospel. In Ephesians 2, it talks about Jesus breaking down the walls of hostility between Jew and Gentile. We believe that the walls of hostility have been broken down among all the races, but we in our culture and our rhythms of life have in many little ways built those walls back up. So all we want to do in One Charleston is help churches and pastors break those walls back down using the gospel of Jesus Christ and lead them and let the church take this conversation further than we as an organization can take it. So that's our hope.
Well, we appreciate it, and we're in faith with you that it's going to go to the next level. And we got, you definitely give us a call, see us what we can do, because I'm about the people. I'm about, what God's called me to be is to teach the people. I guess it starts through television about how good God has been. I tell people right now, I say, if I'm walking to the pastoral calling, I'm going to do what I got to do, but I'm going to connect with the right people. And I tell you right now, people understand, I don't know how it happened, but God made it happen for me to catch these great people here. But before you go, I know, Pastor, that God has a calling on your life to go to where he needs to go to. Where do you see, what has he told you where you need to be, or where is your assignment to actually do with your work?
The hope is to plant a church here in Charleston. I'm born and raised in this area. Right now I'm serving at another church, Sovereign Grace, down in Somerville. The hope is to step out with their blessing and their support to plant a church in the Charleston area. Like I said, I lived in Philadelphia for 5 years and thought about staying up there because I had a great time in Philadelphia, met my wife in Philadelphia. So good memories from Philadelphia, but my heart has always been for Charleston. I'm glad I came back, especially in light of recent events, but my heart is to plant and pastor and to serve this city, which has done so much for me and for other people.
Definitely, and we appreciate it again for coming on to the show.
Thank you.
And we definitely, again, love it that you came on to the show. Now, finally, we'll get to Mr. Patterson here. My main man is doing a lot of great things. Now, I know you got a lot of things going on. I call it the Patterson empire, the
Oh,
company, the
goodness.
organization. Where do you have this organization? Where do you see itself go next 3 to 5 years? Where would you like it to be?
Well, I've always realized that my life was centered around helping others. So I never wanted it to, anything I did had to be to help others. So even with my teaching, I have to help those students, those children. I have a label now that's called JLP Music Group. That's my initials. Mm-hmm. And then I also have the morning show to help others as well. Everything is to help inspire. Though that radio show gives artists an opportunity to send their music in, it also gives them me an opportunity to inspire people, because it's a 3-hour show daily. So it's just giving the record label also is there to help artists build their brand. And just so in 3 to 5 years, I just plan on having this, what you say, an empire. We working. Hey,
but like I tell you again, I thank you again for coming on the show.
Appreciate you.
I appreciate it again. I told people right now, these gentlemen here, keep a good lookout. They'll make a lot of pathways throughout the Low Country. I guarantee you right now, throughout the world, they will be teaching, ministering, singing songs. Mr. Patterson here, Pastor Pinckney, I guarantee is going to be teaching, ministering the word, taking us to the next level. But that's all the time I got. My name is Calvin Logue with the Logan Power Show. We love you, we appreciate you, and we will see y'all next week.